Attention, all curious minds, innovators, and trendsetters. It's time to pause, lean in, and get ready for an extraordinary journey as we dive deep into the fascinating realms of life, technology, entertainment, and business. Let's explore, learn, and grow together. Brace yourselves, for the next thrilling episodes of Hipther Talks is about to take off. Counting down from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And here we go.
Hi everyone, Zoltan here. We're back again this week with Hipther Talks, and this time we are still sticking to the blockchain subject because we love it. And I have the pleasure of having with me Dominic Klopsch, co-founder at Charge.xyz. I love this name. So Dominic, before we dive into the questions, I would just like to ask you, as our tradition here on Hipther Talks is we are giving the spotlight to our guest to say a few words about himself. So in your words, please explain the inspiration behind the Charge.xyz, and of course, give us a bit of your background.
Yeah. Hi, welcome. Thanks for having me. It's really great to be with you, and I hope we can really dive into some of the topics and really get some interesting answers. So thanks for the invitation. Actually, Charge and my background are very much connected with each other. So to understand why I'm building Charge, you somehow probably would need to understand where I'm coming from and what I've done before. So I was initially working in consulting for quite a few years in the automotive industry, and after that I switched to a startup who is an MSP. That's a mobility service provider, and basically what they do is they provide a charging solution to the public. It's a very big one. I've started at the company when there was 40 employees, and I think I left in 2019 when there was about 240. And they should be the biggest EMSP in Europe. So basically, they're working with all the big OEMs. So if you use the BMW charging app, it's done by them. If you use the Mercedes charging app, it's done by them. So I have been working in the charging industry for quite a while, and I've seen where there are flaws and what is really not working, and where there are issues, and also why these issues are existing. And after that, actually, I completely went into another direction. So I started my own company called Taiwan Consulting. And what we do is we basically run marketing and build communities for Web3 projects, specifically for Deepin projects. So at the beginning of 2023, we went into the Deepin sector. By that time, it was still very, very young. And there were very few projects. Also, the term Deepin was just recently coined, so it was all very, very new. And we've been working in that specific sector ever since, and have been supporting many projects that you guys also probably know, and have been working more in the background. But while that time, we also had were in good touch with Peak Network, the blockchain, which will soon be launching, which is specialized in Deepin, right? And during these conversations also with Peak, it became clear that for me and my co-founder, it would be a very interesting option to start something ourselves. So we were basically elaborating like which kind of ideas would potentially fit. And it became clear that Peak has been working on Charge for quite a while. So we were discussing with them back and forth and thinking, okay, how could Charge potentially work out? What are the flaws? What might work? What is already existing? These kind of things. And then towards Q2, Q1 this year, we actually were deciding, okay, let's actually do that because it's just the perfect fit. My co-founder, he is an app developer or a front-end developer, to be more specific, so software engineer basically, and I have the background in the charging industry, and we both have been already founding the company Taiwan, which has proven that we know how to build Deepin projects. So basically, this is a combination of the skills that we have. So Charge was partially already existing, but what we did is to really revise the go-to-market strategy and revise the whole approach on how Charge would be brought to the public, but build upon the existing layer that is already there, built by Peak back then. But it's a perfect combination of the skill sets that we already have acquired over the last couple of years. So yeah, it was basically just a perfect fit, and we had to do it. And yeah, that's why we've taken over Charge, and are very excited to be able to soon release the first version of the app to really onboard users to start communicating actively, which we already started slowly, but yeah, to really showcase what we're building and what our go-to-market is.
All right. So to our audience, I have a disclaimer. I don't own an electric vehicle. I drive a hybrid. So I'm starting from a different point of view in this podcast. And the other thing is that I also have the stress of having Dominic here, who is a former podcast host himself.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is very challenging today, but yeah, I love it. It's we're talking about deep in technology and of course the adoption of electric vehicles. So Dominic, what challenges does the adoption of electric vehicle face? I'm one of those guys, one of those challenges, but I'm interested in particular in terms of supporting infrastructure and of course charger availability, because that's, I think, one of the biggest problems.
Yeah, it truly is. I mean, there are many reasons on why the adoption of electric vehicles has been, well, maybe not as quick as people were expecting. When BMW came out in 2013, I think it was with the i3 and the i8, people already started thinking, oh my God, this is going to be a revolution. It's going to go so fast now. But then actually things are going slower, right? So it's always the same case. If you look at these changes in an industry, people easily overestimate the speed at which those basic layers are actually changing, and they underestimate the speed at which other solutions that they haven't thought of before are coming into play, right? It's the same with the smartphone. If you think about what we imagined the future to look like in the 1980s, we probably thought that by 2030 we would be using flying cars or whatever, but nobody ever thought about the smartphone. The smartphone wasn't a thing that people imagined, right? And it's the same more or less with the electric vehicle adoption and the EV revolution, how somehow we like to call it as well. People overestimate the speed at which the adoption really takes place, but they underestimate the speed at which new inventions can actually come into play and really change the mindset. So the electric vehicle adoption, I think, has quite a few issues. It's partially also the financial aspect, because obviously if you drive a car, why would you get rid of it just to drive a new car? Then it's energy prices, who have been in many countries, at least in Europe, which have been rising quite substantially. So the financial aspect of actually owning an electric vehicle and charging it is not that attractive anymore as it might have been promised, or as it might used to be. But one of the major flaws, and this is basically what Charge is trying to tackle, is that there is actually a risk in the availability of charging infrastructure. So if you take into account that at the moment, for every 10 vehicles, global electric vehicles that are globally on the market, there is only one public charging station available. This very clearly showcases that this is just not sufficient. And you can see it. I mean, talk to people who drive a purely electric vehicle, a BEV, who live in cities, right? They might drive to a public charging station because maybe they don't have one in their own garage or something, because they don't have a garage because they live in a big city, right? Yeah. And the charging station might be displayed as it's publicly available at the moment. It's not, there is no car charging there or anything. They drive there, the app shows them, oh, okay, it's available. They drive there and they see that there is an internal combustion engine car, so ICE car, standing actually on that charging station, but it's not charging. So the charging station, in theory, is available. In practice, it's not, because it's just blocked by something else. Or, I mean, that's obviously something you try to regulate with fines and with public infrastructure. But nonetheless, the charging infrastructure is not available at the amount that is actually necessary to really cover the required availability. And this is a problem, I think, that's not just available in Europe, or that's not just persistent in Europe, but also around the globe, that the public charging infrastructure is just very slow to be built up. That's partially to regulation, that's partially to fragmented markets. I mean, if you take into account that in Europe, we have I don't know, 16, 18, 20 countries or something, who have all different regulations. And it's just not that simple to streamline those regulations. Then in the US, okay, you might have the same regulations, but it's a huge country with just a lot of space, basically. So you need to build up that infrastructure from scratch. And building up infrastructure generally is something that is just, it takes a long time, huge amounts of cost are involved. So at the moment, for all the so-called CPOs, which are basically the charge point operators, that's the companies who build the physical public charging stations, for them, nobody earns money with it at the moment. It's a non-profitable business at the moment for all of them. It's a bet for the future because they believe that in the future it will actually pay back. It was the same when gas stations were basically invented in the 1930s or something, 40s, when they came up. They grew exponentially. So the amount of fueling stations was much, much higher in the 1950s or 1960s than it is actually right now, because then the market consolidated. And that's what will probably happen as well. But what Charge is really aiming for is to make use of the currently unused private charging stations. Because if you think about how many people actually have a private wall box installed at their home, that might rather not be the case in the cities, but more on the countryside or something, or in the suburbs or something. But there actually people have those wall boxes installed at their homes, but they are sitting being unused for what, 90% of the time, because people are driving to work, so they're at work. Then at home, the wall box is basically unused. In the best case scenario, those people even have a PV installed on their rooftops where they collect sunlight, where they basically create energy. But they have to infuse that energy that they basically produce into the grid. But they're being paid a shit. Sorry to say, but they're being paid ridiculous amounts to put that into the grid. So for them, actually, it doesn't really make sense. So what if you could make your private wall box that you have installed at your home available to the public, basically integrate your private wall box into the public charging network and be paid for it by people who drive there, because your home might be close to their office, or they're just on their way or something and they could charge there, I don't know, go for a walk or whatever. So just trying to, it's just your neighbors, just trying to make available these private charging stations to the public is what Charge is really aiming to do. So we're trying to enable peer-to-peer charging, but also enable not only the peer-to-peer charging via those private charging stations, but obviously we also want to integrate the public charging stations, just so that people have a very convenient app available where they can not only use private charging stations, but also public charging stations by CPOs that are in cities or something. So that's what we're actually building.
All right. So I'm interested in how does Charge.xyz deepen technology work to facilitate this peer-to-peer electric vehicle charging?
Yeah. So what has been developed already is a POC. So what has been developed, so you have to take into account that the technical infrastructure of the charging industry is rather complex. There are a lot of protocols, a lot of gateways. It needs to be connected, all these kind of things. And we have a multi-step approach, basically. So in the beginning, it will be a simple authentication layer so basically you take the app, which will soon be released. You create you register your car, or if you register already your private charging stations that you have at home, and these receive an ID on the Peak blockchain, right? And then if you drive to another public charging station or a private charging station that is available with your car, and you basically start a charging session, the authentication will take place via us, right? In the next step, the payment will take place via us, so the settlement of itself, right? Because that's what we come up with the token, right? Because you will basically pay the charging session with the token that is native to us. And in the next step afterwards, we will also try to basically integrate with the CPOs, and the token and the whole authentication and the settlement and the transaction history will be stored on chain, right? So it's a multi-step approach. In the beginning, it's still very much Web 2, which needs to be done that way because we cannot just simply integrate the tech into any sort of publicly available charging station, or also not into private charging stations. It needs to be a multi-step approach, but that's more or less how it'll work. So you get your machine IDs, both for your electric vehicle and for the charging station. Authentication takes place via us. At a later station time, settlement takes place via us. So yeah, this is how we basically build it up. And ideally, what we imagine it to be in the future is to be the decentralized charging backbone. So we want to build a protocol on where any player can basically build upon. So it's different than to what is existing at the moment, where basically companies have their own legacy systems which they work on, and then they need to be complicated. They need to be integrated in a very complicated way. But basically, it's an open layer on where everybody can build. You can go ahead and basically take the available data, build your own D-App application, and companies can just use it because they think, that's a nice feature. All right, okay, I'm going to use it. You get 5% of the revenue automatically or something. So basically, we try to outsource the whole, the development work to many people in a DAO fashion, basically.
All right. So what were some of the challenges maybe you guys, I'm interested in what challenges did you guys face during the development of the proof of concept version of the D-App?
I think the proof of concept version is not necessarily the complex part of it. The POC works well. If you work in a closed environment, it takes some development work, and that has already all been done. So last year at the IAA, there was a presentation of Charge with a real charging station and a real car, and the settlement was done via Charge, transaction was done via Charge. So the POC works. That's not the problem. The problem is more integrating that into the public, so to say, because what you have to consider is, and that's why we also say it's a multi-step approach, and that's why Deepin makes sense. The issue is that there are a variety of players in the market. So I think in Germany alone, it's around 700 CPOs or something. If you take Europe into consideration, the number grows by vast. So it's a huge amount of players, and these players have different targets. They have different sizes, they have different tech capabilities, they have different tech systems as well. So everybody is cooking their own little soup. And there is a lack of harmonization, and there's also partially a lack of willingness to innovate, because a lot of these players that are on the market who are running these charging stations as of now, for them, it's a side business. For them, it's a really small part. They don't even earn money with it. For them, it's just a commodity. They need to somehow do it because, I don't know, either they're being legally forced to install some charging stations or the public requires it or whatever, but for them, it's not really their focus. And the big issue that might come into play at a certain point in time is to convince these players that they should really integrate the charge infrastructure and build upon the charge infrastructure. And what we try to do is, that's why we chose the Deepin approach, because we want to onboard as many users as possible and really incentivize those users to use our app on a very, very regular basis. So we have a high app retention rate, because then we'll be able to take this user base and approach the CPOs and those players in the market and say, hey guys, look, we have 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 users in here. They could all be potentially customers on your charging stations. And then we suddenly become interesting for those CPOs. That's the playbook, how it usually plays out. So if whatever type of EMSP you start, you always need to have a big user base, because otherwise you're not interesting for the players to integrate you. You need to show them, hey, we've got this amount of users, then you suddenly become interesting. And that's what we try to achieve with the Deepin approach, and then integrate step by step, basically. So that will be the more complex part. The technicals are actually not the big issue in it to develop them themselves. It's really just, getting the convincing arguments to be able to integrate and get integrated.
All right. So another question, which I usually ask, because we have a lot of companies that we interview that have chosen Peak. Why did you do it? Why did you choose Peak as the blockchain for Charge? And what advantages does it offer over the other options that are out there?
Yeah, I mean, as Charge was initially developed by the Peak team, it's clear, right? So it's absolutely clear. You just don't take the solution that was developed by Peak and build it on another blockchain. But regardless of that, I've been working with Peak for more than a year in a variety of projects, and I've just seen how they deliver, and not just how they deliver, but also what the blockchain is capable of actually doing, how the team is also set up, how professional they are, and also the mindset is the same. So if you, the peak, I've been in the Web3 space working with a lot of companies and a lot of projects for quite a while now. And there are unfortunately a lot of, let's say, I don't want to say shady players necessarily. There are also a lot of shady players, but there are a lot of people who also overpromise and underdeliver. That's a very common thing. You see a lot of projects who actually they promise all the time. They have one call with Google because I don't know, their cousin's buddy works at Google and he's a nice guy, so he lets them have a call with them. What they do, they communicate on their Twitter. Oh, we're having talks with Google, partnership on the horizon.
All right.
Whatever, like these kind of things. And you see that all the time. And it's just frustrating because eventually many of those projects don't really deliver. And what I've seen with Peak over time is they continue to deliver. And the mindset of the people who work for Peak and with Peak, and also the same with the projects who build on Peak, is just very, very like-minded to how we think. It's a very clear under promise and over deliver mindset. It's a very honest and truthful and just trustworthy communication. The team is completely doxed. Nobody's thinking about, do we need to be doxed or not? Like, that's not even a discussion. Obviously you are, right? You're building publicly. You showcase everything. It's just a very trustworthy environment. And obviously for Charge, I mean, the capabilities of the blockchain, the amount of transactions, the transaction fees, the scalability, also the sustainable approach that Peak follows is something that fits very well with everything that Charge does. So the technical requirements and the mindset requirements and also the vision requirements, or the vision that Peak is following, is just the perfect match for everything that Charge does.
All right. So my next question would be about the app usability, because most probably the listeners are interested in maybe a short crash course about how the mobile app will enable users to register their chargers and electric vehicles on the DePIN. So could you give us a description of this and how does it work?
Yeah, of course. I mean, the app is not yet live, so this is a bit, I don't know, you can consider it alpha maybe if you want, but the app is not yet live. We are developing as we speak, and we are aiming to publish the app probably sometime in June, hopefully rather early in June than late in June. So we're currently doing some tests on the beta version of the app, and we'll then hopefully release it in June. And the basic functionalities will be very limited at the beginning. So what you can do is you basically register an account, and if you have an electric vehicle, you can register your electric vehicle. So you basically put in the car model, the make, the vehicle identification number, all these kind of information, and then you have a car registered with us. If you own a charging station, you can do the same. So you basically register your wall box with us, so you have that in your account, right? All of these grant you some points, right? So we have an inherent point logic, which will later then be transferred into the token, obviously, right? So the basic DePIN approach is obviously to incentivize users to participate by incentivizing them with tokens. And the tokens, as the token is not yet live, will be points in the beginning, right? Some coins. So for these actions, you get a certain bonus, obviously, but we don't want to be exclusive to only people who own an electric vehicle or who own a charging station, but we want to enable the general public to basically use the app on more or less a daily basis. So what we came up with is that we have the app, which has a map feature in there. And in the map feature, we have, I don't know how many it is in detail, but we have global a map of public charging stations. So it should be in the 6 figures, public charging stations that are real, that are standing outside of your door. And we have information on these charging stations. So we know how many sockets do they have, what is the type, who's the owner of that charging station, these kind of things. And what we want people to do is to basically rate these public charging stations. So one of the features at the beginning, one of the actions that users can actually take in the beginning to actually level up, so to say, to earn points, is to rate these public charging stations. So they can go to the public charging station, which is around their corner. We have a perimeter set of 50 meters by the GPS, so we don't get just randomly people rating charging stations in the US while they're sitting in, I don't know, Italy or something. So you have to be close to the charging station, and then you can rate it, and you can basically make sure that the information that we have on that charging station is valid. So you can go there and say, all right, okay, how many sockets does it have? Is it currently used by cars? So are there any people standing there at the moment? Does it have a rooftop or something? So is it shed from rain or something? Like all these kind of information. So you basically we add information to the data that we already have based on the users that are taking actions. So this is one of the core things that people can do at the beginning, where we want to be as inclusive as we can. So if you have public charging stations around because you live in a city, then obviously you can do that. Then again, also because not everybody lives in a city and not everybody has a charger. So you might live in a village or something outside and you don't have a charging station, but your neighbor does. So you know them. So you can go to your neighbor and ask them to basically register their charging station, and you become a referrer. So that also grants you some points. If you actually own a charging vehicle, but you don't charge at any of the private charging stations that are already within Charge, you can historically add your charging sessions into the app. So we know your historic charging sessions that you did on public charging stations, which will also grant you points. And this is how we build it up. And in the beginning, the private charging stations that will be made available by the people, you can book them basically. It's a very simple booking process. It's literally an MVP version where you can book a charging session, you get a price quote for it, you drive there, you charge, and then you basically pay the person, right? And this will then be further built up so that you don't have to book it anymore. People will do the payment directly via the app, these kind of things. So these are the main features in the beginning. So rate charging stations, add historic charging sessions, add public charging stations or the information on them, at private charging stations, at vehicles. These are the main actions you can take at the MVP stage of the app.
All right. So how do you envision you guys impacting the adoption rate of electric vehicles? Most probably you are maybe excited to help out with this adoption rate.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we want to see an increase there, right? For various reasons. Will we actually be the ones who drive the adoption of electric vehicles? I don't know. Will we be one of the players in the market, and hopefully an important player in the market, to provide the infrastructure for charging, which takes away that range anxiety that people have, where they're fearing that they might not make it to their location where they want to go because they run out of battery basically on the way. Yes, definitely. This is something where we want to come into play and just increase the available charging stations to people, and thereby basically be a base layer to the charging infrastructure. And at the later stage in time, we really envision that Charge will not be necessarily the front end, but rather even the back end, because in the back end there are a lot of issues when it comes to settlement. So as said, I've seen the industry, and there are a lot of players in the market. Things don't really work well. You get your invoice 6 weeks delayed, and it contains wrong information because they literally send out Excel files with charge data. Right. So they send Excel files to each other, and a person sits there and actually checks those Excel files and then creates invoices based on them. So the processes and the complexity of the processes, and also those different types of tools that are being used and systems that are being used, is just ridiculous. It really kills the adoption, and people don't understand it because, you see your Google Maps app or something, you see your whatever, Amazon, and the processes just work. They're just there. And that's what people expect from charging as well. People don't understand and don't care as well that there is a complexity to the market, that there are regulations, that there are 800 different players. People don't care about that. They don't care. They say, I just want it to work. And this is an issue at the moment. And what we aim eventually is to solve that issue, basically, to become the decentralized backend of the charging infrastructure.
All right. Basically make an app for dummies.
Yeah. make an app for
Exactly.
dummies, but build the backend in a way where really everybody can participate in the backend development, and to just make it people driven and make it as good as possible.
All right. So yeah, that's the thing. These days with the apps and everything, it has to be straightforward, easy to use. The user experience has to be seamless. So, but there's also another side of things which has been in the public's eyes, but I don't know if they care much about it or if it's just hyped by the media. It's the security and transparency of the transactions, of course. So. What measures are in place to ensure that the security and transparency of transactions within the peer-to-peer marketplace are taken care of?
Well, I mean, eventually it's all on chain, right? But what will not be on chain is the anonymized data, right? So yes, you will see transactions. Yes, you will see how much was charged. Yes, you will see the tokens that were paid for this, right? But it will not be linked to a person's account, which is fully transparent, because otherwise you can just follow people on their way. If they use the app all the time, you can just follow where they move based on their transactions, right? So obviously we need to anonymize that. But we want to enable, that's why I said we want to enable people like you, or I don't know, developers or something, to build solutions based on the anonymous data that we provide. So the basic information will be available and will be visible, but it will not be visible who did that and who is the person behind that actually. But yeah, so I think that it's pretty straightforward actually. I'm not worried about that part. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you guys plan to collaborate with other DePINs and enterprise partners? And are there any interesting partnerships that you might disclose to us, or just keep it secret for now?
At the moment, there is no partnerships that we have entered, so it's all it's happening already. But we first need to start our own solution to come to the market, right, and enable people to start with it. But obviously, there is very close relationships and also talks already taking place with a variety of projects. It's both projects that are DePIN projects, but also, I mean, you easily can imagine that there are potential partnerships with players that are not in the blockchain business as of now. So if you think about Bosch, who is a partner of Peak, that comes easily into play. If you think about NTT, who is a partner of Peak, that comes easily into play. And I'm not saying that we're in talks with them, but I think there could be a good match for that, right? But with other DePIN projects, obviously we talk a lot, right? So for example, with Silencio, if you think about, you go to a charging station, you charge there and you have some idle time because you need to wait 20 minutes or 30 minutes or something. Well, why not integrate a pop-up immediately into the Charge app where basically it states, you're charging right now. How about you take a walk around the neighborhood, discover it, and collect a noise data for Silencio, right? And basically integrate that directly. If you think about map metrics, we're building the decentralized map, right? Why not integrate map metrics for our app? There is a lot of PowerPod, for example, as a complementary player in our kind of view, because they basically build the extension cable to the charging stations. So there are a lot of DePINs, specifically also in the ecosystem we are in touch with, and where we think that there is a very, very good fit to work together. And I think also that generally, that's not something that's only related to Charge, but that's something where the ecosystem or Peak generally has a very good advantage. If you think about how closely you can align partially these apps or some specific of these, some specific projects within the ecosystem, who are just, they are close to each other, but they all have their individual use case. If you integrate parts of that, you end up with a network effect that benefits all these projects. And this is something that will certainly come into play. But as said, we first have to start our own solution. We first have to onboard our own users. and then define what types of partnerships we want to enter first, because initially it can also be only marketing related partnerships, where basically you do I don't know, a user referral or something like that, and you get extra points or something. But eventually integrating them on a technical level is 100% on our roadmap, and is something that will come, but only at the time where it really makes sense and where there is an additional value to it.
All right. So, of course, you guys, when you are developing, you're already thinking about future developments or features. And maybe I'm interested if you can disclose them and about what future developments or features can users look forward from Charge, and how do you plan to engage with your community? This is also as the closing question.
Yeah. Okay, let me start with the community part, I think. So what we have been doing with Taiwan for the last 3 years is to basically build communities. That was our job, right? We are a community building, community management agency. So we know how to build communities, we know how to set them up, we know how to engage them. We did that in a variety of cases. Of course, we will be doing the same for our project as well, right? So we will basically socialize the whole app. We will open up our Discord probably by the time that we also release the app. The Discord is already being developed, and I have to say it. I'm a bit proud of that one. I think we did a pretty good job. It really is an onboarding Discord. You learn a load, and we are already integrating governance features in there, so people can actually educate themselves on a very good level. And if you can prove that you are educated in the way that we think is necessary to be able to really become part of the conversation and to really become part of also the governance structure, then you get that role automatically assigned based on the logic that we implemented into Discord. For now, our communication is mostly on Twitter, which I think makes sense. And this is where we will mostly stay for the moment. The community building itself will take place in Discord. We will integrate features into the app as well, where it's directly connected with each other. So there will definitely be an incentive to not only be an app user, but also to interact with our tweets and our communications, so that we basically just make the most out of those network effects. And this is what leads now to the features, which will be coming. So as said, app will probably be released in June. Then the first app update will be mostly an UI UX related update. So it's just to improve the user experience. The first app version is literally an MVP. So we will have to optimize the user experience as much as possible. Then the next functionalities will be the authentication of charging sessions via the network. And ideally, towards the end of the year, we will try and integrate as well many charging stations as possible. So the focus is not necessarily on the functionalities or features or what you can play with, but the focus is more on building it up from the ground and really enabling the core functionalities that we have to enable in order to showcase that the solution really works. So this is what's mostly on the roadmap for 2024.
All right, that sounds good, and I wish you all the luck with it. And with this, I would like to thank you for your time, for joining us on Hipther Talks. And if you have some shout outs to your team that you maybe would like to send now is the time.
Well, thanks for having me. Shout outs. I know the team is listening anyway, so I know that they're busy, and nonetheless, I think we have a very good setup. I'm looking forward to what's going to come in the future, and I'm really excited for how we can build that up, and I'm really excited also for user feedback. So as soon as the app is out, make sure to follow us on our Twitter. We will communicate it everywhere, and then you guys can be the first to test and to also participate in it and really get in touch with us directly as a team, and give us feedback and your tips for optimization, so we can build an app that people are really enjoying to use and use ideally on a daily basis. So we have a lot of plans, and looking forward to execute them as good as possible.
All right. So thank you so much once again, Dominic, and thank you for our listeners for tuning in. And we will be back next week with more important stuff. Take good care. Bye.
Thanks.
And
Cheers.
that's a wrap for this section of Hipther Talks. Thank you for being a part of our journey today. Don't forget to tune in next week for more insights and discussions. Stay connected with us on Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and more. Until then, keep exploring and keep growing. We'll see you next time.